Hello peeps, welcome back to Big Deck Player with me, Matt Sparks. On today's video, we will be featuring a Paladin deck. Now this deck was brought to my attention by its creator, Hakai, and this is called the Nitro-din. So here we are, this is the deck. There's quite a lot of cards in this deck. So we've got a bit of a scroll to get all the way down to the bottom, but we've got a few duplicates in there as well. So let's start at the top. We have two Blessing of Wisdoms. I'm not sure that we really need two Blessing of Wisdoms in this deck. I think one might probably be enough, but you will need card draw because you kind of need to get to your late game a bit quicker, and having the correct cards in your deck can make all the difference. That's the one problem I've had so far, is not having the right cards. So maybe you do need two Blessing of Wisdoms. Maybe you just need to use them a bit more frivolously. I think, in my experience, Blessing of Wisdom is usually put on a strong card that's going to survive 2 or 3 turns. Whereas if you've got two of them, you can put them on a card that's only going to last maybe 1 or 2 turns and then use another one. So, yeah, I think if you can get 2 cards out of a minion when using Blessing of Wisdom, I think you've probably got value. We have 2 equality, because it's a Paladin deck, so you kind of have to have equality. We haven't got much in the way of hard removal, so equality is quite necessary. We have 1 Holy Light, which is to regain a little bit of health, but also mainly to combo with the Wild Pyromancer. So you've got spells to trigger the Wild Pyromancer and get some damage out across the board. We have 1 Mad Bomber. Try and mulligan for this, I think, is probably the best thing to do. You don't really want to play this when you've got a couple of your Silver Hand recruits out, because chances are they'll probably end up getting killed. So the earlier you get this, the better, probably. I haven't had too much of a problem with the battle cry. I've found that it's split it fairly evenly the last few times I've played it. But it is random, so you might end up getting all 3 yourself. But hopefully this will clear off any minions your opponent has. As I mentioned, we've got 2 Wild Pyromancers. This is pretty nice to combo with some of the spells that we've got. We have 2 Coghammers, which is a 2/3 weapon, so that's not too bad for 3 mana. But it also gives a random friendly minion Divine Shield and Taunt. Now, although this is like a 3 mana thing, and I would suggest you try and get that fairly early on, I'm not sure that there's many minions early in this deck that I'd actually want to use the Divine Shield and Taunt on. Maybe the next minion, which is an Acolyte of Pain. Using Divine Shield on Taunt on that might be quite nice, because then you're guaranteed to get some card draw out of it. But otherwise, the Coghammer's early game isn't actually that useful until you get to like some of your 5, 6, and 7 mana. So you kind of want to try to... I mean, you don't want to use this on the Silver Hand recruit. This feels like a bit of a waste, but... yeah, I'm just feeling like the Coghammer is more of a late game weapon as far as like the actual battle cry is concerned. Early game, it's fantastic because it does 2 damage, which will probably kill off a lot of sort of up to turn sort of 4. You'll probably be able to take out a lot of stuff with it, but the battle cry doesn't really suit some of the stuff in this deck. I mean, I guess Wild Pyromancer, you could probably put it on a Wild Pyromancer and then use a spell, and then your Wild Pyromancer won't take any damage because it'll just use the Divine Shield instead. I guess that might be a play. We have 1 True Silver Champion, because it's a Paladin deck, and, you know, what would a Paladin deck be without a True Silver Champion? We also have 2 Consecration. Now this will combo very nicely with your 2 Equality, which will instantly clear the board of anything that's on there, regardless of how much health it's got, which is fantastic. Also combos quite nicely with the Wild Pyromancer, should you need to do 3 damage to everything on the board. Consecration with a Wild Pyromancer will allow you to do that too. We have 2 Hammer of Wrath. Again, this is a nice one to combo with the Wild Pyromancer. Does 3 damage with the Wild Pyromancer, that takes an extra damage, so anything with 4 health, that combo will work, and you'll get a card draw out of it. And we've also got 2 Azure Drakes for a little bit of card draw as well, which is pretty cool. A 4/4 for 5 with +1 spell damage and a card draw. Very good card. We have one antique heal bot as well for some health restoration. There's quite a lot of healing in this deck too, as you may have seen already. We've already got one Holy Light, which restores 6 health, and we have one antique heal bot, which restores 8. And later in the deck, there's also some more healing as well. So I think you kind of want to try and delay your opponent as much as possible early game, because once you start getting into like 5, 6, 7 mana, that's when this deck really comes into its own. Unfortunately, it means that a lot of the aggro decks that you might come up against, you might be searching for all your heals by the time you get to that point, because you might have taken a lot of damage by then. So it's not strong against like super aggro decks, unfortunately. We have 2 bomb lobbers. I'm still not sure about these. The 4 damage to a random enemy minion can be really, really awesome, especially if there's only 1 minion on the board. If you can kind of clear off everything except for 1, this can finish them off, which is quite nice. But 3/3 for 5 is pretty bad. I think the Recombobulator, the 2 cost that changes a minion to be something of the same value, might be useful in this deck, possibly. Just because you've got Antique Healbot, which is also a 3/3 for 5. And 2 Bomb Lobbers. Because most things that are 5 mana have better stats. Azure Drake, for 1, is slightly better stats. But it could be anything. And most things have better stats than that for 5 mana. We have a Faceless Manipulator. Now this could be used on pretty much anything in your deck, or anything in your opponent's deck, but choose wisely. Okay, scrolling down. Also at 5 mana, you'll notice there is a lot of 5 mana. We have a Lotheb, because Lotheb is pretty awesome. Using it wisely against things like mages to prevent flame strikes and stuff can be really useful and can turn the tide of the game. 1 Madder Bomber, because if a Mad Bomber was not enough, we have a Madder one. Again, I've been quite fortunate recently, and the spread from the damage has been pretty even. I've usually taken 2, with my opponent taking 2, and then 2 more going to their enemy minions. So it's been fairly even, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay that way. We have 1 Avenging Wrath. 8 damage, randomly split amongst enemy characters. Is pretty good if you've only got a couple of things left on the board that you want to kind of get rid of without having to trade out your minions. This can be a pretty nice way of being able to save them and keep them on the board, keep them alive, to be able to do damage to your opponent. Dr. Boom! Because it's Dr. Boom! And as I've mentioned in some of my previous Big Deck Player videos, he's kind of flavour of the month, really. Everyone that has him plays him, without question, almost guaranteed. Turn 7, he will have, he will be played. So, Dr. Boom is in there. As I mentioned earlier about the healing, we have 2 Guardian of Kings, so that's another 12 health in total from those 2 minions. Pretty solid minions. 5/6 for 7 and a 6 health restore is pretty solid creature. We have a Trogzor, the Earthinator. Don't see this legendary card being played very often, and almost always acts as like a soft taunt. As soon as your opponent sees what this guy does, they're going to be reluctant to cast any spells. So they're going to want to try and kill it off without using spells. Most of the time when I've played this guy, they usually try and use whatever they have on the board to clear him off. So it kind of acts as like a little soft taunt, and usually trades 2 for 1. Okay, we've got 2 left. Ragnaros the Firelord. It's Ragnaros, he's the former flavour of the month, but he's still very, very effective. So we've got Dr. Boom at turn 7 and Ragnaros at turn 8. This can be very effective play and give your opponent some real trouble. And then finally we have at 9 mana Alexstrasza, which sets a hero's remaining health to 15. So that could be yours if you're getting low on health, or maybe you haven't used any heals yet. Or it could be your opponent's if you want to try and finish them off. That could be a nice way to do it, especially if you've got Ragnaros hanging around too. It's a pretty good deck. It's a pretty fun deck. I'm a little concerned that we don't have a big game hunter in there to get rid of anything big. And there's no silences, which is also a little bit of an issue for me. Because I think you need to be running at least one silence. We do have a faceless manipulator though. So if you do come across something that's particularly nasty that your opponent has put out, you can always make a copy of it. It's a fun deck and it's something a little different, and that's kind of why I like playing it. That is the deck. It's Nitrodin. You can find it on hearthstone.com. I shall put a link in the description so you can go over there and check it out yourself. Hakai has done a really good write-up, a really interesting write-up, so be sure to head over there and give it a try and give it a plus rating. I'm going to continue playing this deck and having fun with it. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.